So we're now going to move on to a move called a wrist roll. Now all that is, it's actually a very basic move, but it looks spectacular when watching as an audience. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to place my hand out onto the sword. Now remember, you shouldn't have your hand facing downwards, because if your wrist was on the sword, that would result in injury. So back of the hand on the sword. So all we're going to do is we're going to turn the sword, we're going to turn our hand with it, we let go for a split second and grab the handle. So when you do it fast, it looks like this. Now, from here, remember, you have to turn your hand with the sword, because if you don't, you end up your hand facing onto the blade, which is what we don't want to do. Okay, so if it was a real sword, it would cut your hand. So back of your hand, over, spin, and catch. So now you have the wrist roll, we can start focusing on an actual release. So now this release is classed as a basic release. So all it is here and catch. Now one of the main points I make to a lot of people is to make sure they don't hold the sword at this end. So if you fling it from here, it will go flying across the room. We need to make sure we've got a lot of control over that handle. So we're going to hold it next to the guard. So all we're going to do from here, swing it back, not too much like this, but for a little bit of momentum. Swing it back a little bit, release and catch. Now I prefer personally to catch it in my opposite hand. Some people like to catch it in the same hand, but I feel like you catch it in a proper grip if you throw it into the opposite hand. So from here, catch. Now another point is, let the sword fall into your hand. Try not to, if you can, grab the sword here. So a lot of people, they'll throw it and they'll try and grab the sword so quick it either under rotates or it falls to the floor because they're pushing it down. Try and let your hand relax here, throw it up and let it fall into your hand when you catch it. Remember to grip it as much as you can as soon as it touches your hand. So now we're going to try and combine the two things we've just done together. So we're going to try and wrist roll. As soon as we've got to the wrist roll, we're going to try and release. Now, depending on how you do the wrist roll, sometimes you will catch the sword a little bit in reverse grip. It's the same motion, so I'm still holding it close to the guard. Here, the swing, and then it releases. Now remember, we're going to try and get it to do a 360-degree turn. When we're swinging it from here, it will go slightly past horizontal, so it's releasing about here. We'll spin, over, and catching here. So you're catching it in pretty much the same position it started. So when we're doing it from a wrist roll, the difference is it depends on how you catch it from the wrist roll. So I personally catch it in reverse here. So when I throw it, I do the same sort of motion where I do the little swing up to here, and then I release it and catch it the opposite hand again. So I'll show you fast. So it goes here, release and catch. The same catch, remember we don't grab the sword, we let the sword come to us. We swing it a little bit past horizontal, just a 360-degree turn, and catch to there. Now, to try and speed it up, you just go over your hand here, over and catch. Now remember, try that when you feel confident and comfortable enough with the wrist roll and the release separately before you try and combine them. There is a lot of trial and error, so you will drop it a few times, everyone does. So don't worry about if you are dropping it, just keep trying. Eventually you'll naturally feel it, it'll come to you when you keep practicing it. So an advanced version of what we just did, which was the wrist roll into the release, is actually, instead of catching the sword between the wrist roll before the release, you can just bounce it straight off your hand. So I'll show you an example. So this is where we can link in the figure of 8. So in my forms, I would usually go figure of 8, goes onto my hand, bounce it off and catch. So all the technique is we're going into the wrist roll here, and from here, when it gets to the back of your hand, you then release it off your hand. It will do the 360 spin and we will catch the sword. Okay, so it's here, over, bounce and catch. So you've got to use your hand to flick the sword off. Now this is an advanced version, so of course make sure you can do the wrist roll into the release before you try this. It will come at some point. It is a little bit confusing at first because obviously you don't know where to release it from. The best place to release it is from the back of your hand. From there, then that's when you bounce it off as well. You have the momentum from the first spin to do it. So personally, if you want to try it on its own first. If you feel like you're confident with that, you can develop it by adding on the figure of 8 before it. So once you feel confident with all the drills we've just practiced, there are different ways you can make them more advanced. You can mix them up a little bit to make them look a bit more unique to you. So for example, we can do the one we just did, but we go under the leg instead and catch. The wrist roll, we can double it up. So we're here, so from here it goes over my hand and catch to there. And then obviously the normal release we do, you can throw it twice and catch like that. Thank you very much for today. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope there's things you can learn from it. I'm sure they have learned a lot. Don't forget to check out Megan Abel on meganabel.com or on her Instagram. Also don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Team GNT. Peace.